I'm Gail Cormier, and I'm the project director of NASTAC. NASTAC is the National Family Support Technical Assistance Center. I really wanted just to say the Federation of Families because this is the greatest conference, in my opinion, in the country. So welcome to also the National Federation of Families annual conference. It officially begins tomorrow. And before I get going on this training, I want to introduce our executive director from the Federation of Families, Dr. Linda Goggin. And I also want to introduce the staff of NASTAC and the Federation of Families. And we couldn't put on the conference or this training or many, many other trainings that NASTAC does without them. Lichelle Wade Friedman, Dana Asbury, and Gina Fitzgerald. A special welcome and a thank you to the staff person from the Federation of Families who's put this whole conference together, and that is Michelle Covington. She's out there in the back. You'll see her during the conference. And we have Kelsey running the Zoom today. So you won't see Kelsey here. She's in Arizona, but you can always ask her questions if you're having a technical issue. So thank you very much. I will have our guest trainers, who I'm so excited to introduce from Kentucky, introduce themselves. But again, this is a 3-hour training, so relax. And please, you're going to learn so much. Last year, when they did the training on strictly through Zoom, we got so many positives that we had to bring them back again and to really do this. The subject matter is just so important to us, especially as parents of children who have had have experienced mental health or substance use issues. You know, I'm a parent of 3 kids. All 3 of my kids have mental health diagnosis, and this just speaks to me, but it also speaks to me on a professional manner that we, as family members with lived experience, can make it and sustain family peer specialists throughout the country and family-run organizations. So I'm gonna walk away and leave it to our guests.
I suppose we should come up there at first. Thank you. Hi, my name is Barb Greene, and you can tell by the twang I'm from Kentucky. Live in a holler in the mountains of Kentucky, mountain woman. Kentucky strong mountain woman, that's me. And just a little bit about me. I've obviously lived a few lives. So I kind of cut my teeth on social justice back in the 60s and 70s. I don't know if anybody else remembers 60s and 70s, but that's where I came from. And worked with families on issues of oppression, whatever those were, because I shared those same issues. So that's kind of where I came from in my beginning. Started off in a big way by slapping a superintendent of schools and being asked to leave the school board office, skated jail, but learned a thing or two from that experience. And now have come to a place where I think I can partner, and I think I can do it without being angry. And I think I can do it with some integrity. And I think they need to hear our perspectives as families and as youth, because in the system of care, they're supposed to be providing services and partnering with us. So we're all about family and youth driven. So you will hear that in our tone. Kelly?
Hello. That's our boss, you know. I'm Kelly Minton, and I am a family and adult certified peer support coordinator. And I am a mother of 5 kids. I have a stepson. I have 2 biological sons, and I also have 2 nieces that we've adopted and are raising. I think they all have mental health challenges being a mother, but 3 of them are diagnosed. And they're the light of my life. Brittany?
Hi guys, I'm Brittany Roberts. I'm the program coordinator for Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. And I kind of began my journey as a very young child in state's custody. And then growing up through the system and learning ways that were not helpful and advocating for what we needed and what we wanted. I came to a better place where I was able to start doing that effectively. And so I actually adopted 2 kiddos from the foster care system. And I now have 2 grandkids by virtue of that. And they are my world, but every one of them have mental health challenges. So, and as do I. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
So I will tell you that first, I just want to say how honored we are when they approached us and asked us if we wanted to come talk about that cool stuff that's going on in Kentucky. We really did kind of jump all over it because it's
okay. You should have gotten a confirmation
we
email.
Want people to know
a reminder
that there is good news.
Give me just a second. I'm answering a question
all
live right now, and
the
then
advocacy,
switch over.
all the brick
This
walls,
is my role, is handling all the
those
virtual
things that we
stuff.
keep bumping
Okay.
against, trying to make things
Okay.
better for families
email.
and you.
Tell me your name
There is
again.
some good news to talk about. So that's what we wanted to talk
Just
about.
tell me.
So
start your
the other
email
thing
for me
is that Kentucky so strongly believes in what the Federation is doing.
Yep.
And also,
this is going to be a very unfancy. It's going to say link, and I'm just going to copy and paste it in. It's a webinar. You don't need a password. There's no waiting room. You'll just be right in.
That we brought 21.
I'm so sorry. Just let me know if you need anything. Okay.
So, yeah. So I'm just going to ask our Kentucky crew to stand up right quick. This is our Kentucky crew. And these folks are the reason that this presentation is even possible, because it is built up the backs of their journeys as well. So I wanted to say that. Okay. So what do we do when we need to click? Do we have a, oh, this is the clicker? Is that it? Okay. So somebody smarter than me probably needs to do that. Yeah. Do we point it in a particular place? Oh, thank you. So we're learning how to live in partial COVID era. So we wanted to share this, this slide. This is a disclaimer, and we're just going to give you a few minutes to look at it. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns about it, please get with Gail. But so we just wanted you to know that what that is and be aware. So, okay. So the first thing we're going to do out of the gate is we're going to have people go to a Slido. So I hope folks did bring your phones. I know people are always told, don't use your phones, but we hope you brought them. And we want you to go to this Slido and answer the questions.
Give people just a second to get the QR code.
Is everyone able to access the Slido? Okay.
Yes.
You decide.
Yeah. Oh, can we go back to the other one? So, and if you weren't able to scan the code, you can go to slido.com and enter in the participant ID. That's not that. And I don't remember what the numbers were off the top of my head.
There.
106-3639. And then if you could show the results, yeah, awesome. All right, so this will keep moving and growing. So if you haven't had a chance yet to answer it, it will keep growing with us. We thought it was kind of important to know who we were talking to, who was in the audience, who you guys are and what your role is. And so it looks like about 58% is family peer support leader or advocate.
And that's growing.
Oh, it's growing. So obviously that's not going to be our biggest hit at this point. Our next largest is other. So
so somebody volunteered.
What is the other?
What's the other?
I'm curious.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Yes.
BBI.
BBI. I love BBI. Yes, Building Bridges Initiative. I've been part of that for a while now, so I like it. Anybody else in the room who was something other? Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Great. Okay, awesome. And then it looks like we have about 11% peer support director or leadership, which is awesome.
It's growing.
Oh, that's growing. And then we have about 9% youth peer support or leader or youth advocate. And we have a couple of providers in the room with us.
Awesome. Thank you, champions.
Yes, thank you. All right. So we'll have to go back to the other one. Thank you. Oh, there goes.
Okay. So we want to talk to you just a minute about what we lovingly call KPFC, because Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children is kind of long. And we don't really like acronyms unless people explain them, but ours is KPFC. I told you it was a statewide family organization. We do tons and tons of stuff, been around for like 23 years now. Our main office is located in Frankfort, which is the capital of Kentucky. Our staff is scattered out all over the state, like many of you all who have staff everywhere, all over your state. And back about 23 years ago, we started a movement for family voice. And what happened is about 10 years into that, we finally got it, that it can't be just a parent voice. We finally got it. And so we started strategically putting youth voice as an equal voice. And that has been an amazing, painful journey for both the youth and for us parents, as you can imagine. And so we do a lot of youth programming and we do a lot of family programming. And one of the things that we do, which is what we're mainly going to be talking to you about today, is we do peer support. And about in 2007, I don't know how many years ago that was, I'm not good at math, and I'm kind of old. So in 2007, we launched a journey in Kentucky to prove that lived experience was valuable. And in fact, it was equally valuable with anything else you've done with families and youth. And so in that journey, we set out to make peer support a billable service in the state of Kentucky. So that was huge. And it took us 7 years because it was 2014 when it finally, we just woke up one morning and the executive director of KPFC, my partner in crime, called me and she said, Barb, we're billable. We're billable. And I was like, what are we going to do now? Because I thought I'd be dead by the time that happened. And so we set out to think about how that should look in Kentucky. Everybody had lots of notions, but I want to tell you this, and we'll show you again in just a minute. When it became billable, it became sexy. And so we had a commitment on a state level to honor peer support and to build it into the programs all over the state of Kentucky. And our state works a lot with the community mental health centers, which is the nonprofit mental health centers across the state. Everybody went out and got himself one. And some folks are laughing. Everybody went out and got themselves one, and then it began. And as it grew, I will tell you, we no longer, as a family organization, got to steer the ship. All of a sudden, there was a ton of bureaucracy layered over what we were trying to do. The infrastructure really wasn't even complete yet. Our vision was wonderful. We were grateful. But what we were not is always at the table. So a lot of decisions begin to happen. You remember it, Amanda. A lot of decisions begin to happen without what we thought was a voice. And I don't have to tell you what happens when those things happen, right? Y'all know that. So our new mission was to help them after talking to peer support, because we get them together twice a year, peer supports from all over the state and other family and youth leaders. And after having some conversations with them, it was very interesting because it didn't look the same in any region. It looked very different everywhere you went. And so priorities looked different. Job descriptions looked different. So it wasn't what we envisioned in the beginning. Suddenly, it became billable. Everybody felt obliged to have peer supports. Some of the people who had money were expecting programs to have peer support, but there wasn't a lot of efficacy. There was not a lot of fidelity in the peer support. I mean, we done everything from the purest form of peer support to one agency telling their peer support folks that they needed to go in and babysit people's children while they went to the grocery store. That's a big stretch. And so we felt that we had to reclaim peer support. So back in 20, we were part of a System of Care 5 grant. Is anybody else operating under a System of Care grant? Yeah, well, Kentucky's had 5. And we're very grateful because every one of them somehow included family and youth to some degree. This one gave us some money, and it gave us the power to build something. Now, the something was not our vision. The something is what they thought it should be, which was to really kind of include a population that had never been included before as a priority. That was families who had the wonderful experience of child protective services in their life, who had a substantiated case but hadn't yet lost custody of their children. So it was prevention. And when we built our program, we said, that's wonderful. And we need that prevention. But this is not an either or. We have to do both. So not just those who still had the kids, but those whose kids were gone also became very important to us. So our mission was to build 6 peer support centers across the state of Kentucky, and we had about $350,000. So $350,000 to me, because I come from generational poverty, that's a lot of bucks. However, to do peer support across the whole state, that's kind of a drop in the bucket. Y'all want to add anything to that? Are we ready to move? So, okay, so Brittany, you want to give us the questions?
So one of the questions that we had for you guys is, do you feel like data would help you? Is there something you'd like to know about your services or agencies that can help define that by data?
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of heads nodding.
People nodding, yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to say, Brittany, and then I want you to ask the next question, okay. But those of you with lived experience, either your own or on behalf of your family, have you ever partnered with a provider and felt like they were making a difference between the folks with lived experience and the people with a degree? Do you ever feel that way? Okay, no, there's nothing wrong with the degree, man. I admire those people. They busted their tail, they got a degree, and we need them. But we also need other people whose knowledge comes from somewhere else. And so that was our, yeah, at one point, I heard a provider say, well, we need peer support, but they kind of need to kind of look like us. They kind of need to be able to present like we do. So they needed this certain magic skill somehow so that we could really relate to them and families could relate to them. And so my question was, hey, you ever have a therapist come to work and said she's not having a good day and she needs a mental health day and give her time to go home? Well, yes. Oh. So I guess when your lived experience people are having a bad day and need to go home, they're displaying symptoms. It's not a mental health day. They are displaying symptoms. And so I got from that, that was right when I was on my way out the door. That was my last conversation before I quit. And I went back to the state to work with KPFC. So what's our next question?
And then our next question is, what is something you know to be true, but you don't have the data to back that up? So tell us things that you know to be true about peer support. You just don't have the data to back it up and you wish you did.
Right.
Gail.
Yay.
So Gail said the peer support works.
Successful.
And it's successful.
And works.
And works.
Amen. Found the same thing in Kentucky.
Peer support, you said peer support is not valued and doesn't get paid.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
The purse strings don't.
When it comes to the dollars, in Connecticut, about $10,000 off of the market standard.
What state are you from, can I ask?
Connecticut.
Connecticut?
And I'm one of those that I'm a college dropout.
Me too.
I'm the executive director of our statewide peer support organization.
Okay.
And I have Yale degrees working on.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Hi, my name's Stuart. I'm from Canada, and I just want to speak to a story quick. Hopefully, it'll be quick about family support not being valued. I was partnered with a family organization that was around for 25 years and had 5 offices and served thousands of families every year. So of course they know families, and families know how important, how valuable that is. So what we want to do is we want to do a project capturing family stories as a documentary to be create a tool so people could just get it online and get over the isolation, the fear of reaching out for services. So I was with the executive director, and we went to see a very large bank that had millions of dollars they were putting into mental health as a branding exercise. And we said, we need a little bit of money to do this project. And of course, their answer is always, we need evidence that this is going to work.
Yeah.
And we said, well, this doesn't exist.
Right.
That's why we're making it.
That's right.
And the executive director who I was with got so angry, she almost jumped over the table at this person. And I knew they were saying no to me in this meeting. And they were saying it because we were a one-off project, a little organization. They want to give it to big, multi-million-dollar organizations that everybody knows. Yeah. So in spite, I said, okay, I'm going to give you another proposal. And I spent all this time online capturing as much data as I could find about why peer support works. There's a lot of data out of New Zealand. There's a lot of data out of Australia. There's a lot of data in Canada. There's a lot of data in Ireland, where they have put some stats out. There's also stats in the States around peer support generally, maybe not families helping other families. Right. So in the end, I put together about a 20-page report, which is as much data as I could find. They didn't give us some money, but again, I needed to at least get that answer when they say we need evidence, which is them saying no, to give them the evidence to make that no a little bit harder or get a yes. But this was a pure example where they threw that back at us. And in the end, there is data, but they don't want to hear it often.
Yeah, right, right. Thank you. Thank you. And that was one of our discoveries.
I have
also.
a quick question here from someone who has a question about what happens because we can't afford to pay to collect data.
Well, we can speak to that. We got blessed. I mean, it was a true blessing in this Systemic Care 5 grant, and they were collecting a lot of data about a lot of stuff. Some of it very important, some of it not so important to us. But we were able to persuade them to give us a little bit of technical assistance to start collecting some data to prove the efficacy of peer support in the state of Kentucky. Because in the state of Kentucky, they don't have nothing. What little they do have is about adult peer support. Doesn't include youth at all or families. It's consumer to consumer, which is a good thing. It's not inclusive of what we're talking about. And so we were given some really cool people from a university, UK. Anybody know about UK? I think they do the big sports stuff. I'm not a sports fan, but at any rate, they had an evaluation team. And their evaluation, and we're going to talk about this a little more, because their evaluation team actually worked with me and then me and Brittany. And I don't know nothing about data. You know, I don't know if I even believe in data, because all the research I've ever seen was just to prove somebody's theory, whether it was right or not. And so I was very suspicious about data. But we told them what we wanted, and they helped us build our thing. And we're going to look at that today. It is amazing, and it belongs to us, not UK. So isn't that cool? Yes.
So speaking about the peer, I've realized and noticed that sometimes when we do get the data, it contradicts what the book said when you went to school.
Yeah.
So it's not valid. They will not validate it. I used to do mobile crisis, and I know that county has the stats of the calls I'm on and the calls I'm not on, and what the outcome was. So there is that, but I'm not clinical.
Yeah.
I'm peer, so we can't get that. A lot of times when you're sharing with the other family member, the mom or whoever, the clinical side, I would get the, well, that's not how we do it. You can't talk about your home. You can't talk about this and that. And when I would speak to it and then somebody would follow, they'd say, oh, what's your magic? And it's not magic. It's just being human. You know, it's just
magic is peer support.
Right, right. So it is out there. If we could get it, we would have to pull it out from clinical places if they would share it. That's the other thing. Because they don't want that information out there. They do not want that information out there. And yeah, I've had a lot of peer experiences the same that like, whew.
You know, if they have that information, they may have to pay us more dollars. And that's scary.
And I'm so glad to be here. I found my people. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
There is a question, one more if you don't mind.
Yes.
The question is, there are a lot of people here that online at the hybrid session, they're hearing that there's a lot of peer recovery specialists, and they are family peer specialists. They would like a quick explanation of what the difference is.
The difference is where you live. Let me say that. In the state of Kentucky, which is what we can speak to, about 10 years ago, recovery was not used for mental health. Recovery was a term that was used in substance abuse treatment. And in fact, those were the folks that they preferred that I went out and hired. They preferred people who were in recovery from substance abuse, which we need those folks, to people who are in recovery for mental health, in the mental health journey. So that's that. But it depends on the state. In Kentucky, where there's a peer mentors, there's recovery coaches, there's most of that is around substance use. So they don't necessarily use that term for family and youth, but that's what we're calling it. And that's what we're touting it. And that's what we're challenging them on. They collapsed in behavioral health, substance and mental health, and just recently separated them out again. So I don't know about you all, but I think all over the world, agendas follow dollars. And so that's part of that's part of the battle.
That's you, Barb.
Huh? I know I need to start moving.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, cool.
I always feel like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. Need the magic mic.
My comment was to your question about not having data for something, but kind of having a hunch for it. I had to think about it for a second because I have a lot of those types of thoughts for things. And I'm a firm believer that meaningful connection is, I know how strong it sounds, but I'm a firm believer that meaningful connection can be a cure for any mental health, any substance abuse challenges, and even suicidal challenges. I believe that a lot of these stem from a lack of meaningful connection with people. And so I think that as peers, that's what we do. We connect with our peers. And so I think we're in the right track.
I think we do a lot of data collection in our everyday life. That's what we do. We learn things and we try to sort them out and learn from what we're learning. This just afforded us a way to begin to look at some of those learnings and be able to make some decisions about that. So that's where we're going. So we're ready to move. Oh, so here's our objectives. I can't believe we're only this far. We probably got to pick up that. So our hope today is that you all will have an opportunity to kind of explore an infrastructure that might foster some opportunities for lived experience growth. Is peer support a lived experience? Is that a career ladder anywhere? Anybody know of that? We did not. And so we said we need to build one. And so part of our journey is to build a ladder, an employment ladder, a career ladder for lived experience. And so that's part of that's part of the why of why we're doing this. And so we also wanted to kind of get a little peek at this, what we never, I mean, who'd have thought that, you know, a 71-year-old broad who never opened a computer until she was 50 could do a whole workforce management thing on Smartsheet. Who'd have thought it? But, you know, it happened for us. So I tell you what, we begin to think it, we begin to believe it. And then also look at some alternative ways that we've been studying about to support that stuff. KPFC probably pays folks with lived experience, we pay a living wage. I can't sit up here and tell you any agency other than us that does that in the state of Kentucky. Maybe they do, but it's probably a for-profit. It's not, you know what I mean? So, and part of the big, we lost tons of peer support specialists because they can't sustain that position in their agency. So, and then of course, we want to show you a little bit of evidence of the need and what we've learned about systems change that we need to be doing right now. Okay, so this is just a little markup, and it's kind of like peer support before and after. So before it was billable, it was minimum wage. I don't know what minimum wage, I guess it's the state you lived in. We have, a lot of our state is poverty. And so $7 and something an hour is what we were talking about. Usually they were part-time because for part-time folks, you don't have to add benefits. They used us, they were very limited about how they used us in family engagement. They were a little nervous about us, and they probably should have been. And our role was not valued, was not equally valued. So when we woke up that morning and it was Medicaid, billable, ta-da, it was a limited wage. So we were looking at maybe 9. It was, the team members were forced to recognize us as a partner. They didn't ask for us. They had to deal with us. Services became totally billing driven. So the peer support that we know and love was secondary to what was going to pay the bill and sustain the position. Agencies lost money. Those who were trying to support peer support actually lost money trying to support it. And then there was a lot of our coworkers. I told you the story of one. They should look like us. So they felt very threatened. Not only did they feel threatened by where we came from, but they felt threatened by the relationships we were establishing with people. When we had families who were calling us their counselors, it was like, no, don't say that. Don't say that word. Do you remember? Don't say that word. That makes people nervous. Don't say that. So that's kind of a before and after for Medicaid, which I love Medicaid. Man, I want them. I want Medicaid. So across the board, this is what we learned, even before and after. It was difficult to sustain these positions. There was no career path. There wasn't even an opportunity for advancement, really. So you would, if you worked as a peer support for 30 years, you're still the same level. It was underutilized or not utilized. And then all of a sudden it became a war between lived experience and a degree, and which created total havoc for a system of care. And then there was continued role confusion, like on their part and on our part, you know? So people still didn't know the difference between us. And the very folks we wanted to partner with was the most confused of all. All right, so now we're looking at it, a job versus a career. You can see this for the job, short term. They do it to fulfill a business need. Low career growth. They were about collecting money. We were told to do the bare minimum outside of what's billable. I don't know, is it different from somewhere else? Because that's what we were told. Not interested in really valuing or partnering with us. We were always looking for a new job. So peer support was used as a stepping stone to get to something else. And then it's kind of a daily grind because nothing ever changes. Nothing changes. As a career, now we begin to look at long-term. And I mean, why do people get into doing peer support? We're called to do that. I didn't wake up one day and say, I think I want to scare all that scary stuff in my life. And no, we were called for some reason. And then career provides professional and personal growth. People do gain experience. Usually we'll go above and beyond. We kind of leave work feeling different about what we do. And it should be aligned with company values if they truly value us. And we're looking forward to moving up the ladder. And so at the end of the day, it's fulfilling. And guess what it is overall? It's a journey. It's a journey that we're on. I recognize a lot of people in here that are on the journey. So, Brittany, do you want to click or? Okay, so here we go. We need to try to do this. So here's the QR code, and this is a number if you're having difficulty. So we want you to fill that out pretty quickly. It won't. It says voting closed.
Hold on. Sorry, hold on just a second.
Okay, we have a question.
Yes.
It's more of a statement. It says voting closed.
Okay, yeah, we're trying to work on that.
Okay. Can the people online vote as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Please use the QR code if you're online. It says voting closed. Okay, so we have a little technical issue.
Trying to fix the glitch, which is gentleman's out in the back.
We're working on a technical issue.
Can somebody try reloading their screen now? No, it's still.
Is it working?
No, it's not.
Still. Yes.
Can I ask a question about for the Medicaid bill?
Yes.
Medicaid insurance.
Yes.
On an annual basis, how many claims do they refuse? How does that impact the organization?
How many what?
How many claims?
How many claims? Well, listen, I can't get in trouble up here. I'm just going to tell you. Because I could very easily do that. So I'm trying, yeah, it's kind of a trick question. But I will say that many services are insurance driven. And Medicaid does pay a lot longer than many private insurances do for services. So Medicaid has been a blessing for mental health services.
It's working?
It is working now.
Yes.
Online, you can try it now.
There is tomorrow a panel with Oklahoma. We can dedicate the physical $60,000.
Awesome.
And our Medicaid healthcare authority manager, as well as our
Awesome. That's awesome. Did you hear that? So there is a session on Friday. What's it called? The keynote on Friday, which is going to address Medicaid. And I just want to say, you know, the people, we've worked with a lot of people from Medicaid. They're good people, and many of them believe the same thing that we do, but there are a lot of constraints out there that prevent some things from happening.
I just want to say, I'm from Washington, D.C., and I've been working with the D.C. Medicaid office for 2 years.
Oh.
Medicaid is not easy as folks think. There is a lot of claims rejected, not because they want to reject them, because they're not being processed accurately and in a timely manner. And they have a certain amount of time to redo those claims, because ask me, I know. So in trying to correct those claims, you lose money and time. So just be careful. Listen to Oklahoma tomorrow. She'll give you the answers, but it's not as easy as you think. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things we were told about Medicaid was, you know, a lot of this is governed by regulation, and regulation, for one thing, is very political. You all know that. It's very political and also takes a long, long time. So I just want to amen what you're saying. I'm looking forward to that.
So in Connecticut, and I don't think I need Mike. Do I need Mike really? And that's how we get things in Connecticut done. Raise our voice. In Connecticut, annually, about $11 million of claims is rejected. And for families in poor communities like New Haven, Hartford, Waterbury, again, where I live, that impacts families of color.
What's your name? What's your name?
Mary's Ford Wilson.
Hey, can you look me up? We need to talk.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
The statewide organization,
yeah,
that I'm the executive director of,
yeah,
we are grant-based.
Yeah.
We take our money from the mental health block grant dollars that come into the state.
Yeah.
And that's more solid
than
piecework.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We also operate, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but yeah. So, okay, so 54% say that peer support is a career in their organization, right? And 46 said it's a job. I don't think our job's done until all of these people is up here. you know. Okay. Amen. Okay, so we looked at the traditional medical model for peer support, and you can see it. But what the significance is, job performance standards, so a percentage of your time, which had to be face-to-face, doing what they defined as peer support. So supervision, usually from clinical folks who are great clinicians, but didn't come from lived experience. And documentation, all of our documentation was done under somebody else's license. That's how it becomes. But Medicaid don't pay unless this, and this is in place. It comes under somebody's name. So what we know is in the beginning, at least, and still some today, they're a little bit nervous about us writing notes under their license, you know? So our model, one of the things that we discovered is because of COVID, everything went virtual. And what we discovered was that many of the folks that we work with, they can do virtual. So why aren't we just saying that virtual is okay? Why do we keep saying, oh, we need to go back to face-to-face when we know this is working? And now we're building data that shows that that works. So we have a more limited billing requirement. Lived experience coach, lived experience supervisor, services that are around our customers' hours and not them coming into our hours. Workforce development that's relevant to what we do. Living wages, and actually being a part of deciding what's working and what's not. So that's kind of what we're promoting and how we're behaving in this model that we're doing. Okay, so very quickly, very quickly, let's go over this. So here's the things my partner in crime, I told you about, Carol Cecil, and we've looked and talked to people for over 20 years who's doing peer support and lived experience work. And we've learned a lot, especially since it became Medicaid billable. We have learned so much. So we're actually put the pen and paper. That's the old way. We put the pen and paper. If we're thinking about a career, the things we got to be thinking about. And so for us, we said we got to be thinking about whoever's hiring them. Are they ready for lived experience? What would it look like if they were? What are they doing about workforce development? Because if they're just, you know, doing the same stuff they do for their traditional medical staff, our needs are different. Are they really providing opportunities for skill development? You know, a lot of people, I'm going to say this and I'm probably going to get dinged again, but let me just say that I don't care if you come from lived experience or you come from 40 degrees. All people working in this field need relevant skill development. And just because we should not be treated any different. So we should have those same opportunities for relevancy. And the thing we take a big hit on is our soft skills. You know what I'm talking about? Our soft skills. So we need to be paying attention to that. A plan for how they're going to get identified, recruited, and a decent hiring process. Which, by the way, if it's going to be a decent hiring process, should probably include somebody with lived experience doing the hiring. And then creating a living wage and treating this job at the same level as a bachelor level degree. And then creating a ladder for advancement and better salaries as we go. So that's kind of how we see it working. Yeah.
Thank you. So we just want to make sure that everyone is aware. We are very clear that you are getting one point of view from the three of us here in this room. And yes, we do work with the statewide family organization for Kentucky. However, we do not necessarily represent every person in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And so somebody else who also comes from Kentucky may feel very differently than say we do. And that can come from a lot of different things. One thing that just pops off the top of my head, and I'm sure Barb and Kelly, you might have something that pops off of your head, but one thing that pops off the top of my head is, you know, sometimes as family and youth peer supports, we get tokenized. And all of a sudden we're very sexy and people want us all the time. And they pat us on the head and we, you know, we're doing such a great job and that feels really great. And it boosts our self-confidence. But in the end,
it's a little intoxicating.
Yeah, it's intoxicating. But in the end, that's not really system change. Okay, that's your agency or your organization or your small community. So when we're talking up here, we're talking about peer support as a whole and peer support across Kentucky as we see it. Anything you guys want to add to that?
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't think they was going to let me talk. So I'm going to talk about when customers start receiving services. The readiness is, how do you think that they might be ready? Or are they able to advocate for themselves or their families? You might start hearing things like them saying, I would love to help other families, or I want to help others that are going through the same things I am. Sometimes you won't catch on to them things as you're working with families. I had been working with this family for 6 months, not too long ago. And she came to me and she's like, she was going through some of the same things I went through in my journey, which you'll hear about that later too. But she said, how do I do what you're doing? She said, you know, my family's going through, one of my kids is going through addiction issues and trying to manage things like that. She said, how do I help other families that like you do? So I was like, well, you know, we got started, a family leadership academy is happening tomorrow. Can you show up? You know, so there's opportunities that we do help other youth and families get involved in to get them started, because I don't want to just stay here. I want to go and help these other emerging leaders get started as well. So then you're looking at the opportunities. They could be talking about different committees that they've stressed interest in. It could be somewhere in Kentucky, we have a REAC, which is a regional interagency council, support groups that are families led, opportunities to assist families in family fun days. The barriers that could happen might be they could be shy or lack of confidence. They may not have the time. They work to support their own families. Limited options in their areas to build more skills. There's a lot of communities out there that don't have a whole lot. The policy and procedures, you need a champion in an organization to lead changes. Agencies can provide coaching for leadership, promote inclusion of customer voice and planning and elevation of activities and events. You need a champion that promotes the value of lived experience and the structures for meaningful participation. So they all just sit down on me and leave me up here by myself. She thinks I shine. So when we start talking about the emerging leader, the readiness will look more confidence on speaking out and starting their own leadership journey, which shifts the thinking of mine to ours. Opportunities look like customer participates with others in a unified voice. It could mean joint meetings, the KFLA, which is the Kentucky Leadership Academy that I was talking about earlier, more outlook on the bigger picture. Barriers could honor customers' time and leadership roles. It could be they struggle with transportation or childcare. Also could trigger their own recovery journey. The policy and procedures could offer consultation fees for their time to cover cost barriers. Also, regular coaching and a coaching plan to continue their leadership. The practicing leader, it could be the readiness would recognize their own message and how it affects others and aware of basic professional etiquette, but also aware of the structures of where they're operating at. Opportunities could be step up to a bigger leadership role in a group, get more involved in different trainings for specific skills. They could also, some examples could be participating in parent groups or getting on a GMIT in Kentucky, which means a grant management implementation team. Barriers could get, they could get the big head like I do sometimes. The star syndrome, become intoxicated with the power. Not being able to self-evaluate themselves on areas of more growth. It could cause role confusion. The policy and procedures could mandate and formalize lived experience roles and descriptions and accountability for customers or volunteers, emerging leaders or practicing leaders. So then you get to the newly certified peer support specialist.
Tell them about our certification.
You shouldn't put me on the spot, Barb.
Sorry.
No, for the family leadership, everybody would go to the Leadership Academy, and then you could either choose to do the family leadership or the youth leadership certification. Listen, she's going to overtalk me up here. But it's 35 hours training. And you go through, each day is you go through your own situation station. They'll give you a topic, and with everything that you learned in that one day, you would get kind of put on the spot like she just did me. And you would explain that. And then there's also a test that you would take each day from what you learned for 5 days. It's very long and it crams your head full of all kinds of material. So I can go on now? Okay. Then we look at the readiness of being the newly certified peer support specialist is the desire to help others with their own story. Knows the need to follow agency policies that they work for. Need to be able to apply the skills they have learned. For example, the certification. I was going to get to that, Barb. So the opportunities would be to shadow other peer specialists and continue to get coaching by their supervisor and opportunities to practice them skills. Barriers could be transitioning from customer to employee. Peer services not being valued as equal but different roles. Policy and procedures could be, you need to be cautious of no tolerance policies. Focus on support wellness policies for all staff. Formalize coaching within your agency. Now they're cutting me off.
All right. So then we moved on to the experienced peer support specialist. And so when we're looking at an experienced peer support specialist, we're really looking at the readiness for that. And so in looking at the readiness for that, you're looking for someone who meets agency expectations for their job performance standards. This person often asks for feedback. They request to attend additional educational opportunities for skill development, something such as, you know, coming to a conference like this. They have a strong understanding of their role as a peer support specialist and as an employee and as a member of the team that they work with. They value and seek out opportunities to partner, and they have the ability to coordinate volunteers with lived experience for different activities and tasks. This person often identifies, recruits, and supports others with lived experience to participate in the movement and in that bigger picture. When we're looking at opportunities, that looks like allowing or engaging, or I'm sorry, allowing or encouraging attendance at a next level leadership training, something that in Kentucky we call the coaches training. So we actually do a whole training around how do you be a coach? What are those skills you need? And how you can put those skills into effect to really make change and to be able to grow those emerging leaders and those practicing leaders like Kelly was talking about. Totally lost my spot, but that's okay. We're just gonna roll with it. And you're looking at some of the barriers. You know, there's no formalized career ladder that recognize growth and skill development. You know, it's something that we dream about, and it's something that in Kentucky we've certainly worked on building, and hope that one day it will be recognized nationally. There's an unequal weight between lived experience and a degree for advancement within the agency. Excuse me. And so, you know, as peer support specialists, we may not have those same letters behind our names. However, what we do have is a whole lot of lived experience, a whole lot of hard-learned lessons that we can use to help somebody else who's going through that and is trying to get through that successfully. Some policies and procedures. Pieces of that is creating a salary matrix based on demonstrated competencies and years of professional experience. That's going back to that career ladder. Somebody want to change this for me while I'm talking? Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, that way. Oh. All right, so and then there's the peer support regional coach. And so that looks like having a readiness. A coach should have the ability to recognize when their coachee is not functioning as well as they could. The coach should have the desire to help and the willingness to find solutions. The coach should act swiftly to help their coachee, and a coach should have awareness of their own coaching and supervision needs. They should be able to operate as a team player. And if we don't know what we need to work on, how can we help somebody else know what they need to work on? And so for opportunities, they need a chance to self-reflect on their leadership and how it affects people they are coaching. They also need an opportunity to receive feedback from their supervisor and individuals they are coaching to understand their own development needs, and an opportunity to meet with other coaches for networking and peer evaluation. Some of the barriers is there could still be an expectation that this individual still needs to meet these billing requirements. And, you know, it can be real hard to meet these billing standards and be able to coach other leaders to come up and do that. And there's some regulations determining the amount of direct services versus customer services. And I think Kelly had a story she wanted to share about going through the coaches training.
So let me tell you, we had to send out 4 different emails to people, and they got to judge our skills. So there was parts in it that I felt like I was pretty strong at, and then when I got my evaluation, it didn't look too good. And it was on parts that I felt I was stronger at. And then there was parts that I didn't feel like I was strong at. They seen something I didn't. So then I had to reevaluate it and look at the part where I thought and I felt I was strong at. My coaches and supervisors and the people that seen me didn't actually see that part of the job that I did. And because with me, I'm a peer support over the Cumberland region. That's 18 counties I serve. So we're spread very thin, but we're able to manage that through Zoom and through online and all that. But that specific part, they didn't see how I did there. And so then I'm sitting here, well, how can I show them that I am strong at that? So it hit a little hard on certain parts because that's where I put a lot of effort in. So that's my story.
Thanks, Kelly. So oftentimes too many folk, oh, we got a question. Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Scoring you, were they also people that had experience doing what it is? They were whoever you decided that they should be. So if I wanted to poll both these people like I'd worked with, or people I had supervised, or people who had supervised me, or even a customer that I've been, a lot of people call them clients, we call them customers, but a customer that I had worked with. So we kind of asked people to do a kind of a 360 in who they asked to do that. And because it was anonymous, we really encouraged people to be frightfully honest, because there's no point to doing it if it's not an honest reading that you can reflect on. So, I mean, it took a little bit of courage to sign up to come and do this, because it was really holding a mirror.
Kind of going a little further back with the coaching, because I'm like still stuck there, because I think what y'all are doing as far as building skills, the skill set of peer specialists is powerful, because that knowledge and information helps position for what you said, career growth, upward mobility. With the coaching, so is it, you're still sharing your story and supporting parents and families? Are you giving coaching skills on how to address maybe ambivalence or maybe the fear of system failure, and not just sharing your lived experience, but coaching skills on how to get parents to that next level to be able to do that? Because every parent cares and they're the experts. Sometimes we just need certain skills to kick it in. So,
absolutely. So, you are correct. Listen, we do not only that with the coaches, but a step back from that, when we certify our peer support folks that we get to certify in Kentucky, that is built into that. doesn't matter whether you just started or whether you're a peer support director. You still need to be able to use your experiences to help somebody else think through their own and make their own decisions about where they want to go from there. So, and that whole, I don't know, when I learned about MI, anybody know about MI, motivational interviewing? A lot of people know. Okay. When I looked at that, I said, you know what? This is the best kept secret ever. So they, you know, and it was designed for clinical people, right? To work with this. And it's a good tool. It's an amazing tool. But they don't have to own that. So, yes. Let me take it.
For what was he was going through mental health and addiction, but they did not just come to him regularly. They used motivational interviewing, and it really jump started, and it became our family story. Because my son's story and his recovery that began family recovery, but that was the skill set that's primarily we hear used a lot in active addiction. But I believe the principle of it, because I happened to be present, I didn't know what was going on. And then the next day, the person who was a peer support, but also had that training said, so you saw the motivational interview. And I was like, is that what that was? Because, but it sold me on it too. So you find that working well with parents. I believe that.
It's a whole new way of language and a whole way of opening up genuine and honest conversation to allow for that growth in that relationship to build.
And you know what else it does? It allows people to identify for themselves what they want to do with their life and not somebody else explain to us what we should be doing. So it's genuine, it's authentic voice of people. So we love it. Yeah.
And so oftentimes there are too many folks who begin to drown right before us, especially at work, in different walks of life, etc. We watch as many people walk away, and uncomfortably some even taking their own lives due to the pressure that comes from navigating these challenges. Everyone needs a helping hand. If you don't have a coach, get one. If you are a coach and you don't have a coachee, find one. There's no excuse for anyone to be out there in this career, in this job, in this whole conversation out there without somebody to help them to continue to grow their skills and then to eventually turn around and help others grow theirs. So I think we're at a good breaking point.
So is it 15, Gail? So how about this? Was it 10, 15? 15. So can we come back in 15? Let me just tell you something. We've been talking about some stuff, but the best is yet to come.
Hold on with us just 1 second. What'd you say?
I said, please come back because the best is yet to come. We haven't got to that yet.
So it's 2:22.
Taking a 15-minute break, and hopefully everybody online will get some refreshments and come back in 15 minutes.
has it been 15 minutes? Y'all think? Okay, cool. All right. So,
hello.
This one's working, no?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. So once it clicks, oh, here we go. All right, so one of the things we want to, okay, so we've been talking about career ladder. So at some point we need to look at, so what's that kind of look like on the top? Okay, so are the people who really direct are the program director for peer support who are recognized the same value as any other program administrator in any agency. Those folks. They really have to be ready to promote, advocate, educate on what expertise on customer-driven process should look like and how an agency could get there. And they need to be able to be a change agent. And I will tell you, that's not an easy job to do for those of us with lived experience, because oftentimes we wind up trying to partner with the very people who've partnered with us in another way. Like it could be with CPS, who had open cases on me and my neighbors, my families, or it could be behavioral health. But many of those experiences have not been that we didn't wake up one day and say, hello, can you give me some behavioral health services? They were like forced choices for many of our families in our youth. And so they need to be able to bring that kind of perspective to the table in a good way, not slapping people like where I started. And they are going to need an opportunity then within the structure of the agency to be the one who does the onboarding of LIV staff. Because that's where the rubber really meets the road, right? So they should be the ones who are hiring. Now, who'd have thunk that? They should be the ones who are hiring people. They should be people, they should have the ability to sit at the very table where those policies are developed and have an equal voice in that. And they should be the same as any other administrator or professional, have an opportunity for ongoing professional development. Here's the barriers. Again, we've seen this on every slide, right? Power, an imbalance of power and how to manage that. So that's going to be how to sustain that position, because you're not billing Medicaid at all, or you're not making a dollar necessarily to help support this position. And so there are going to be some unique challenges that come with that. Where does that money come from? And then, of course, I will tell you that it's going to be sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it's very difficult for those of us who have lived experience to not lose our footing, to not lose our grounding from whence we came. And so all of a sudden, I will tell you, when I was a community organizer, and it was amazing because we were trying to get the asbestos out of the schools over in Tennessee. And you know what I'm saying? It was a challenge. But the school board offered me a job. I could be a teacher. I had absolutely no degree, but I could be a teacher if I just shut the hell up, which I've never managed to do. And I just cussed for the first time. Sorry. So, sorry. I'm so sorry. They have to watch me because sometimes I just get overly passionate.
It's after 2. It's okay.
It's after 2 o'clock. So that they have to not lose their grounding there. We should not be doing to other folks with lived experience what has been done to us. And so we have to keep that. And somebody's got to keep us honest, because we could lose our way, quite frankly, if it's just me looking at myself. So, and the policies and procedures at this point, that career ladder we're talking about, it has to be the way it's done. Not an option, but a regulation of how you do that. There has to always be quality improvement. Those expectations need to be defined and set in partnership. And there's got to be a path, and it's got to have efficacy. And so that's where we're going back to. It wasn't until we started looking at this level that it was like, oh, hold up. We got to get some numbers to stuff. If we're really going to ask agencies to be able to really, at this level, employ peer support, we got to have our stuff to show them why they should be doing that, why it's important. And so that's a part of where a lot of our database really grew out of. Click, whoever's clicking. Okay, so here's what we see. Here's the peer support career as we've seen it. Customer entry point is generally at receiving services somewhere for somebody. Could be our kids, could be our spouse, could be us, who knows? But that's generally the entry point. And then somebody recognizes something and grooms us, like Kelly has done Lakita back here, and they begin to demonstrate leadership. All of a sudden you're seeing stuff in them and you're like, oh my God, they have all these leadership skills. Then it should be a practicing leader. We've talked about that. Then of course there needs to be official certification for that person so it is recognized. And then they need to gain more experience. They need to start coaching other people, and then they need to run the stupid program right at the top. So that's how we see this peer support career. And when I say we, I mean Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. Other people in Kentucky may see it differently.
It's me again.
Me again, Marty.
I just want to start off. My journey was not very pleasant. I had fell into addiction after I lost my little girl. And so it was hard to come out and finally realize something was wrong with me. But I'd gotten into some trouble, and some random stranger just looked at me and said, do you think it's just you? And something clicked in that moment. I had family members, you know, best friends, and everybody tried to reach me at one point. Nothing clicked, but that stranger did. So, and that kind of started my journey wanting to help somebody else. I eventually, you know, volunteered to go and get some behavioral health services. And then that even helped me even more to want to move back up. Then I got hired into a local recovery center, and that wasn't enough for me. I wanted something more. I wanted to continue more. So I took the initiative myself and paid for the adult certification. I thought that's where I wanted to be at. And I did it my own time, money. And then I applied for the job at KPFC. Barb's been stuck with me for 2.5 years. So, and I learned more, and it was more family, helping other families where I was at. I'm raising kids right now, and I deal with families that are going through the exact same thing I'm going through. And that can be overwhelming. So that's not easy by no means. There's days I want to throw my hands up and just walk away because my family's going through that as well. And I eventually got, you know, certified as the family peer support. I've got facilitator with nurturing parenting now. I can do smart recovery. I do QPR facilitated training. There's a whole bunch more, but I didn't bring my binder with me today. But thank you. Then I just went through, I told you about the coaches training I went through. So that's where I'm at in my journey. And one day I hope to be in Barb's shoes is my goal now. So that's my journey.
All right, so we're going to take a look at my journey. Woo-hoo. Okay, so as a youth, I was forced into services by virtue of being in state's custody. They get to tell you what to do. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's true. For the longest time, I told everybody I was going to get state's property tattooed on my forehead. Thank God I didn't, but you know, I contemplated it quite a bit. And so really for me, my first point of entry was being forced into those services through residential and DJJ and, you know, all that stuff. And then they realized I was really good at being a leader, only I was being a leader in negative ways, like, you know, instilling riots at the residential treatment facilities and stuff. And, you know, police are coming and having to haul us off because, you know, we're going crazy at the residential. And so, you know, they realized, oh, wait a second, she's a good leader. Now, can we help her move that from a negative leadership to being a more positive leadership? And so that was kind of the next step for me. And then someone saw an opportunity to let me share my voice in a positive way that could affect change. Unfortunately, you know, and I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but what often happens is you become a token. And so, you know, I was that model kid from that residential treatment facility, and they patted me on the head, and, you know, I was real good and stuff. And so they wanted me to share about how great their program was, you know, and so they put me in the opportunities to be able to do that. And then sadly was wrong and realized that I could now share the message in a much more positive way. However, I was still going to tell you what you were doing wrong and try to make changes. So, and then I was hired at that residential treatment facility. And that was fun for a minute. But, you know, they learned a lot along the way, and so did I. And you know, I have other youth leaders who have grown up now, and they tell me, we so appreciated you being there because you knew what we went through. You were able to relate to us. So there's that. And so at that residential treatment facility, they got this bright idea that they were going to hire or that they wanted to start having family peer support specialists there. So they sent me to KPFC's training to be a family peer support specialist. And so I go, and I'm like, holy cow, this is great stuff, man. Like, who knew? And so I got certified as a family, and then I came back and got certified as a youth. And then about a year after that, I think it was, I got certified as an adult. You know, because God love my heart, I still have mental health challenges, y'all. It didn't go away. And so then I was asked to be on the board of directors for KPFC. And so I sat on the board for a while for KPFC because, you know, the executive director and the associate director saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so they asked me to sit on the board of directors, in which I did. And I remember the next opportunity that was given to me was to go through the coaches training that Kelly talked about. And so I went through the coaches training, and then I went back to that residential treatment facility that I was working at, and I started grooming these other leaders. And so in Kentucky, we have what's called a joint meeting. And
yeah, don't be confused by the name.
Yeah. It's a confusing name, you know, but anyway, it's called the joint meeting, and it's an opportunity for parent and youth leaders to get together and to come and network for the weekend and build their skills and share with each other what's working and what's not in our state. And I'm at that joint meeting, and we're on a smoke break. I guess not everybody considers it a smoke break. I guess we're just on a break. Those of us who smoke may consider it a smoke break. But anyway, there was a job opportunity available as the program coordinator for KPFC. And I had all these parent leaders with me at this joint meeting. And Barb and I was outside, and we were smoking. And she said, "Brittany, you should apply." And I'm like, "I won't get that." And she's like, no, really, you should apply. And so I did. And about 2 weeks later, started working for KPFC and as the program coordinator. And so, you know, that's kind of how my advocacy journey has built up. Now, no, I'm not the director, and that's kind of the last ladder. That's kind of the last step on this ladder that we talk about. But she's going to kill me in a second. But, you know, she's getting older, and and so eventually she's going to have to retire, and maybe that means that I can step into that. Sorry, Kelly.
I'm fighting over it.
Friendly competition. So we're not, you know, we're not even going to tell you about this old person thing that I encountered at the airport with these people, because I don't like to be called old. I am other-abled. I am, you know, what I lack in body and mind, I have in resourcefulness. So anyway, I'm not going to go through my whole journey, but it really talks, again, from the customer all the way up to past directing a peer support program on a regional level, but directing a peer support project on a state level. So we know this, if you build it, they will come, and they can actually come this far. I did. Who'd have thought it? Yes. Oh, I'm so glad they asked that.
Question.
Yeah.
We love that question.
Yeah. So, as a person with lived experience, let me just say this. The word client kind of makes me feel like somebody else owns me, kind of owns my future. I don't know. I know it's not intended that way, but it has that ring. But the truth of the matter is, and families don't know this, and youth don't know this, but you can hire anybody you want to give you services. You are not stuck with one agency and one provider.
And you can fire them too.
And you can fire them. And so when you look at it that way, then you are a customer of services and not somebody's client. So that's kind of why we've taken a stand on that. So anyway, so that's just a little glimpse and possibilities. And, you know, I would have never thought, man, I went down from here The highest salary I ever made was $7.50. And even in rural Appalachia, that ain't much. You know what I mean? But up here, for the first time in my life, I was paid a livable wage that I could support my family on, first time ever. And so I can testify the importance of moving from that rung to this rung and having that opportunity.
And I think we wanted to ask you guys to really just consider, what is your pivotal moment?
Yep.
What was your pivotal moment that helped move you on this ladder?
To where you're at right now. What was that one thing that happened to you? Well, probably several. But what was that one thing that you can go back to and say, that's how I got there? Because of this, I am here. So anyway, when we started building our peer support centers, we realized we needed adequate research. We needed to figure out what the real need was, what the real picture was. And so we done surveys, we done events, and a lot of them happened at those opportunities when people have lived experience could get together and said, here's the real deal. Here's what it looks like in our community. This is how it feels in our community. This is what we want in our community. And so we did that. We also looked at some ground level provider staff. Our state providers are wonderful. We have some terrific partners at the state level. I don't want to sell them short. They were involved way early back in 2007 when we were trying to make Medicaid, make peer support Medicaid billable, because they also believed in that. And so I don't want people to think they don't. We have had a lot of champions that have partnered with us in amazing ways. And from my perspective, for how long I've been alive and doing this stuff, tremendous growth from the System Care 1 to System Care 5 grant in Kentucky. So there's been tremendous growth. So we didn't start from minus everything. We had some folks in place. We had some believers and schemers and dreamers who would sit with us. So anyway, we looked at what was happening. We were hearing the voice, both of the people who were hiring and utilizing lived experience and folks who were providing lived experience. And there was a lot of inconsistency going on. And we're still wrestling, you know. How long is it from 2007 to 2022? That's pretty good long time. We're still dealing with having low value for many, low wages for many, and them having lower outcomes, which I think they thought if you're talking from my perspective and our perspective, you're not talking from their perspective. From their perspective, their outcomes probably look pretty good. And they're probably way ahead of where they were before. But for us, still not enough. We're talking about something different. It looks different than what we have experienced in the past. Okay, so we had to know the why. Why are we doing this? You know, we sit around and talk about it and said, wouldn't it be really cool? Wouldn't it be really cool if people with lived experience really got valued? If there was an opportunity for them to be able to not just build their skills, but build their career? Wouldn't it be cool? And we said, well, what's going on right now? So we've done a lot of research about what's going on right now. Where are the gaps? Where are our barriers in the current peer support delivery system? So not just gaps we see out there, but things we're missing too. What are the gaps that we can identify within ourselves? And we said, okay, who believes in what we're doing? And we found some. and I'm going to bet you will too. And who's dissatisfied with what's happening right now? And much to our surprise, it wasn't just people with lived experience who were very dissatisfied with what was going on. There were people that came out of the woodwork that we would have never thought that really had that same dissatisfaction. And then who shares our belief and has an influence on what happens? So, and then we formed a working group. We're calling it a vision stakeholders group. You know, that's the sexy name they use, stakeholders. And so we got us one of those. And we started work, and this was people who were bought in from everywhere. Some of them come straight out of the CMHC. Some of them come straight out of peer support. Some of them were youth. Some of them were parents. Some of them were providers. Some of them were on the state level. So it was a pretty diverse group of folks to form this working group to explore the why we should do that or not. And here's the homework. It's always homework. So who's the potential audience? Who are we talking about? If we build these peer support centers, who are we going to work with? You know, you don't get them by osmosis. You know, you got to have a place. They got to come from somewhere. And who are the potential staff? And I'm probably going to get in real trouble because I would tell you when I was hiring people, I did not mind stealing staff. Okay. So there were people out there who were already on board and had that dissatisfaction in working somebody someplace else. And I said, oh, come on over here. So, and they know who they are. I'm not going to put them on the spot. And then what do we know about really managing peer support? Because we'd always done it and we weren't as good at managing it. That's a total different look. And then what do we know about evaluation or research? Nothing. We didn't even know what we needed to be collecting information on. Just a bunch of lived experience folks who wanted to do something. And so what were the current policies that were governing peer support? And what we discovered is there was a lot of them. And in some ways they're exactly the same, but in many ways they're very different depending on where you're at. And then what connections? We've always traditionally been tied to Medicaid billable, and tied to a community mental health structure. That's where it started. That was our beginning. But where else should we be looking out there? Because there's other folks. And so we've done some homework around that. You clicking? Okay. So we looked for partners who understood Medicaid. I don't know. Somebody was talking about Medicaid. I'm coming to that because I don't know very much about Medicaid. I don't know about their processes except for what I went through. But we need people who understand that process, that billing, how they make those decisions that is worth $8.66 per increment. Who gets to make that? How do they get to make that? How do we get to change that? We needed that. And then those who are partners who are dissatisfied. So that's our professionals who are also dissatisfied with what's happening. And a firm believer in family and youth driven and systemic care. So then we got some startup opportunities, and we were doing this on a shoestring for many, many years. Where what we got is a little piece of money here and a little piece of money here. You guys know that. And did what we could and pushed it as far as we could push it. But I will tell you, in 19 or 20, came the Systemic Care 5 grant. And those folks believed the same way we did. And so they were willing to put dollars where the rhetoric was, okay, to really ante up and be partners. We got a grant from the Statewide Family Network that put in a little bit of money. I think they put in like $95,000, a little bit of money. And then we were able to tie some of the things we wanted to do to the current deliverables from the block grants that we were getting already. So it was this little hodgepodge. Plus, you know, we're not above begging and bumming and all that other stuff, right? So this is kind of the infrastructure, and we've been talking about that all day. So here's our model, and this is a comparison. So work processes and systems from our experience, KPFC, it's a social justice model, which is a little bit different. It's grassroots. It's bubble up instead of trickle down. Policies and procedures and supervision are aligned with the vision and mission. And so that's what our center is really using support personnel and professional growth of customers. Our new peer support specialists come from our customers. We are building a movement, and we are building leadership. And then we're going to put our dollars where our mouth is, and we're going to support them. For people, lived experience really is about recognizing competencies based on lived experience, performance measures that look a little bit different than they might look in another job. And gosh, more self-reflection, self-report, self-identification. And the peer support centers have done, we have moved from emerging leaders to practicing leaders, focused on skill development. We gave a platform for the customer's voice, and we began monitoring what was happening to them through us. How were we doing? And then we done more formalized leadership strategies, more effort went into coaching and supervision, and we had more structured collaboration with the partners. So it wasn't just as we can, it was like a seeking out. The decision-making, leadership. We have a board of directors who's also at least 51% people with what? Lived experience. Yeah. And then other folks on our board of directors and on our staff are young people who started at young adults, many of whom are here today, who started out receiving services for whatever reason. And we feel like they should be helping make those decisions about where we're going. So the roles are a little more fluid. They're not as chopped and concrete as you see in a lot of agencies. And we really look at, we have advisory councils. There are 6 different centers in 6 different areas across the state. And we either have an advisory council, which we came up with because they were not part of the System of Care 5 grant, or we utilize the System of Care 5 grant and their grant management implementation teams to have lived experience sitting in those seats, guiding that. And a whole shared vision and decision-making. So that's how we do our peer support staff, which we have 11 right now, we're down 1. They get to help make the decisions. It's not just predetermined for them. And a career ladder that supports upward movement to peer support director. That's why you hear, oh, Kelly over here and Brittany who are already vying for my job, is because they know that you can be upwardly mobile in this framework. So what it looks like, we were going to do this in the breakout room, but I don't think we can because we all just talk too much, is would like for you to think, and let's just take this just a second. So what do you think the culture is for peer support right now? Ever how you define that? What is the culture of peer support? Somebody talk to me. Say it again. Authenticity. Someone else. Culture. Empathy. Say it again. Connectiveness. Say it again. Empowering. Relational. Life change can be transformational. Resiliency.
So who makes the decisions regarding peer support?
If that's the culture of peer support, who's making the decisions about it? Where you sit, where you see, what you experience, who's making the decisions about it? Agencies. Departments. Say again?
State.
State. Say again? Peer coach. Okay. So what does leadership development look like? What kind of leadership career ladder looking thingy do you have or do you experience going on? Training. Okay, so utilizing people with lived experience that really helps make those or shape those decisions. Cool. So are there any particular work processes and systems that are different from what you've seen before? Some of the traditional things, or are we still trying to maneuver in those traditional realms? I think most of us are still trying to figure out how to make it work in their realm. And so that's where we said, we don't think that that's going to be possible at this point. So we're going to make our own realm. So you can click. There. So you're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so, okay. So we wanted to talk about data equals dollars, because that's really where our money comes from, right? Pass this on this button. So I'm not going to be able to use that. Okay. So we have data-informed decisions, and this really sharpens our perspectives on the trends, patterns that are happening within peer support, not just services, but the needs being identified. Really used it to tweak service delivery, and that's where the waiting list kind of came from. So we actually have customers who are sitting on a waiting list, which we never thought that would happen, but we have people doing great work, and so now we have people who have to wait sometimes. We try really hard to make sure that wait's not long, but sometimes there is a wait, especially for youth. But we'll go into that more later. And so we began to look at patterns and where the referrals were coming from, who they were for, all of that, and putting that together. There was an overwhelming need for nurturing parenting, and that came directly out of collecting that data. And it was a real learning. And then the capacity. So we learned that we need more, and it's going to keep growing, we're never going to work ourselves out of a job. So there's that. And then there was this big discovery that families can and would benefit from virtual. When they first started limiting telehealth opportunities, peer support was one of the first on the cutting block. And we learned that there are a lot of people who can utilize virtual support, but they can't make it to face-to-face support, or, And some people are blessed by having an agency that allows you to go to them, but that's not true for all agencies. And so, you know, it really cut down the amount of people who were able to receive those supports and services that they needed. Okay, I think.
So can I build on that?
Yeah.
So I just want to say that this has kind of helped us identify what we needed to be doing in these peer support centers through doing that kind of that research and having those conversations, doing that stakeholder thing, all those things we talked about, is that there needed to be we needed to really identify what the strongest referral source could be. And for us, it turned out to be none other than Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services, which was, that was a big learning. We didn't think they would refer all those people. So, and we needed to standardize the referral form. We needed to figure out a way. So we was having them do it on paper, send stuff in, and then we were trying to, Brittany and I were working together to try to figure out, it took us 20 minutes to get a referral and figure out who could work with them and get it to them and get stuff started.
Give them a customer ID number and all of those different stuff.
Yes. And they needed a unique number because we needed to protect the anonymity of the families. So if we were going to share this data with the world, there needed to be a secret code for who these people were, so they weren't exposed. And we needed to incorporate some tools that was going to give us some information that we really needed. And you're going to see some of that. But one of them is a family empowerment survey or study. What is it? Family survey. And one was a youth empowerment survey. Say it again. Scale. Thank you. Survey, scale, assessment. I get them all confused. So, and then one of them was actually quality, looking at quality, not just quantity, but we need to be figuring out about the quality. And then part of them was figuring out where are people who want services and we could provide them to. I got one here and one here and one there.
So my question is, since you're involved with Child Protective Services, where are you all utilizing a portal?
We are.
Do your referrals come in through a portal?
That not Twist. We're not using Twist. What we are using is we created through Smartsheet a link that someone can click on and do a referral, and it goes into our system. So that's how we did that. We're not using, because let me just say this, in the end, we do not want a grant to determine the kind of data that we own or don't own. Because a lot of times that's what happens to us, right? We get technical assistance, they supply us with this data, and then money's gone and they're gone. And so's our data. And so we own this system ourselves. So yes.
I have a question. What do you think is a reasonable amount of time for peers to spend with consumers? Because some agencies have a restriction on how much time you're supposed to spend with them, because you have homelessness, mental health clients, as well as addiction. So
they set the goals, what they want their life to look like. We try to use our skills and our experiences to help them get to where they want to go. And that could be them coming to a nurturing parenting group, and that'd be done in 12 weeks, and they feel like they're completed, or that could be ongoing for a long, long time. We do not, it really is according to what they need and they want. That's how it's determined. And because we don't have to justify it through billing, we don't have some of that other stuff kind of layered in on that.
We're gonna show you here in a minute what we get. So we're gonna give you a demo of our system, and we're gonna show you exactly what kind of information we collect and what the workers want us to know.
However, I want to,
whoever is that referring source.
I want to really answer what I think the hidden question is, okay? So if I understand this, what you're asking us is who determines the goals, the families or Child Protective Services? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Amen. Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Absolutely. And I think they bust their tail to do that in a way that families feel good about it. Okay. But when they get to us, we look at what someone else said they needed. And then we look at what you want your life to look like. And then we say, okay, so here's what you got to go through to complete this expectation of you. Now let's talk about where you really want to go, because we need to be working on that. So, and all too often what we have discovered is not just social services, providers, period. They really, truly believe they know what we want and what we need. So it's not out of ill will that you come up with all of these plans, which sometimes contradict each other, but they really are doing that with the best of intentions. And so we're trying to help them understand. If you're really talking about family and youth driven, families should be defining those goals, and so should you. So we're trying to help them get there. And that's been a big piece of what we have discovered and what we're trying to work on. Yes.
Okay, my question is on the FES and the YES. How many questions is that, if you don't mind?
Kelly, you do those a lot. So the FES is about how many questions are there? Probably around 34. That's probably about right. That's probably about right. And because we're collecting that information, then we're able to have a quarterly report as we're moving through time with families, how those situations might change. And what we've learned is it looks better at the first collection than it is when they finally start discovering some of their own truths and their own paths. Then that first thing changes a little bit. So they might look worse on paper the second time you do it. You know what I'm saying? So we've just, absolutely, absolutely. And we can tell you right off the top, one of the main things we've learned is families do not feel like they have a voice, a big enough voice in their services. So, and I don't think that's just Kentucky. Yeah. It's both. It's both. It's both. So like our peer support specialists, like Kelly, and we have several of our other center people here. They engage in those conversations with folks. And in those engagements, whether it's in person or virtual, they feel freer to say what their truth really is. Period. Period. And it gives us fodder for what we need to be looking at on the state level, addressing their voice on a state level, so that it's not all of us up here, lived experience or not, who are making all these determinations, but people in communities are telling us what we think you need to be doing. So, yeah. One more and I guess we got to roll.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, I won't say it loud now. Do you have all of your staff, is it the expectation that they do their own data entry? And is their data entry all directly going into the computer with no paper form? Or are they doing it paper form, then it goes into the?
Well, they may be collecting some things paper because some people have to do notes about stuff, but they are entering all their own data. They have their own dashboard in the system that they enter the data in. So, yeah.
And we're going to look at some of that data now.
Yeah, let's roll. Oh, I'm the clicker.
Okay, so we've talked about this a little bit earlier. So 97% of customers can utilize virtual support.
Well, and that's really applying the pace to what many of our folks have thought about whether or not families can access. No, can access the notion of that we can do it over the phone. We don't care. They can use their phone.
And of those 97% of customers that can utilize virtual support, 86% have chosen to. So they would rather do it virtually.
That's what we're hearing.
Is what we're hearing. But okay. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. So in 2021, that's when we really kicked off the ground running with the peer support.
February of 2021.
February of 2021. And we kind of, for the first couple of months, we really had two regions in our state who utilized us. And that was the Cumberland region and the Two Rivers region. I think it's also important to note that they were the first cohort in the System of Care 5 grant.
Yeah, and another important thing to note was Cumberland has a long history of partnering with people with lived experience.
Yeah.
So they were more willing to take that risk and send us those people, just like they did back in the day. Okay, so we are cut up, not in mental health regions, but in DCBS regions. And so most of those regions have at least two community mental health centers in them and a lot of other players as well.
Yeah.
So, but Cumberland is still the forerunner, but that's where we've had like 10, 12 years, maybe, history of partnering with people there.
And for this specific grant, I think it's also important to note that there are 3 other DCBS regions that are not captured in this data because we don't have a peer support center in that region.
Right.
Now, that does not mean that we do not serve people who live in those regions.
But we're not capturing that.
But we're not capturing. Okay. All right. So, in April and May, we saw this huge, or maybe it was May and June. I think it was May and June, now that I'm looking at it this way. We saw this huge spike in referrals in 2021. And I think it's important to note that in 2022, in April and May, we saw that huge spike again. So something happened during that time, and we're trying to figure that out because we want to know what happened to cause that spike.
We have theories, but we need to really figure out what was going on at that time.
Yeah. And October is now over, and this was captured real early in October. So the numbers for October of 2022 are not accurate. But you know, you can see the progression from February of 21 until now.
And what you're looking at is snippets. Anybody ever heard of snippets? So in Smartsheet, they have this cool thing called a snipping tool that you can go in and gather specific things and do this cool stuff with for reports. So that's what you're seeing.
Yep.
We're excited. We just learned how to do that.
So Barb mentioned earlier that Cumberland was really one of those pilot regions who really believed in peer support and partnering with families and youth. And but I think it's important to note that from 2021 to 2022, it's kind of evened out more.
We're seeing a shift.
So these other regions are really starting to pick up and grow their partnership with us. And so that's awesome.
And that kind of tells us that in these other regions,
somebody's seeing it work.
Something's going on that's working, that's causing people to want to partner with people with lived experience. That was not there the year before. And so it really is kind of helping us look at what we're doing or need to be doing or should stop doing to create that. But it also gives us a harder look at what our capacity is with 11 people serving the whole state.
Yeah. You want to click?
Yep. I did not click.
Oh, okay. All right. So the service efficacy that we've talked about this efficacy thing all day. And so what we are seeing is that about 85–90% strongly agree that receiving peer support services helped me achieve my goals.
That's significant. That's significant learning.
The proof.
Yeah, right. The proof.
All right, so now we're going to get to that demo. I'm going to go back here and manipulate it.
All right. So we're going to give you a glimpse. And first, before we do this, let me repeat this to you in case you didn't hear me before. You do not have to be a data analyst. You do not have to be a guru or a numbers person. You just need to know what your vision is and what you want.
I want to add something to the data. So the data was not easy. I've been from day one, and Barb has made me change my stuff 5 different times. So each time I've already done 100-something services. Well, then here comes another 200 services. So each little time she has made me literally go back and change every bit of it. So when you're first starting out, it's not easy. You think you're doing it right, and then she's like, you got to change it again, Kelly. I'm like, no, Barb, I'm not.
We truly were building the plane while we flew it because we did not have all this expertise. We just knew what we wanted. And as we started collecting things, we could see what we were missing. So then Kelly is right. We would go back and say, hold up, this is a missing piece. Not only do we need to do this going forward, but I need you to go backward and get that piece so that we could show what we really needed to show. But that was also one of the blessings of us doing it in our agency the way we did it. So this is a glimpse of what our workforce management dashboard looks like. Everything on here is done through Smartsheet. So if you have a business license in Smartsheet, you can do this. So over here is like the referrals. Thank you, Brittany. So when a referral comes in, hold up. When a referral comes in through that link we talked about, it shows up over here under new referrals.
Do we want to show them the referral form first?
Yeah, let's do that. Do we have that?
Yep, just 1 second.
Let's do that. So we're asking for their information. These are the people, the referral source. For their information, who they're providing at this point, we're not seeing it today, but when we first get it, releases are signed. And so we also get the first name and the last name. We never, ever even ask for the social. We don't care. That's not important because we got other ways to track people. And then we ask that question. Is this person you're referring, are they able to do virtual support or open to that? And Brittany showed you overwhelmingly the answer is yes. They kind of prefer it. You know, one of the biggest hits we've taken as families is not showing up for appointments. You know why? Life's crazy, right? Life is crazy. And so you're late for appointments or you miss an appointment and suddenly you're that non-compliant client. And so, you know, you start losing services or there's an interpretation about your desire for services. So this allowed us to really look at that. Then here's things we thought was important. So we tried to collect on race and ethnicity. Can you pop that up, Britt? Can you open the race?
Yeah.
Thank you. So you can see this is what we have chosen. Maybe somebody far smarter than us could have chosen some different categories, but these are the categories that we chose. And Native Appalachian was important to us because we have a huge Appalachian population, and that culture, that subculture is very different from the rest of the folks in Kentucky. What their role in the family was, is it adult? Is it a youth? Is it a caretaker? You can see that. Is it a foster caregiver? They need support too, right? Is DCBS involved? What are the ages of the children in the home? What is the status? Are they in the home or are they out of the home? So we're trying to collect that sort of thing. Why do you think we should be working with them? And it's very interesting what we get, isn't it? Yes. Different reasons we get for why they're interested. I know, and sometimes we feel so good. We're like, oh, they really care about this family. They really want to be successful. And other times we're like, holy crap. You know, that's full of judgment. I don't even think that's fair. But it's what it is. And then we asked them for documentation. And when we first started, what happened was, when I was telling you about how me and Brittany was doing it, paper and figuring out who and doing all that, then the next step was they had to go back to the referral source and they had to try to get a treatment plan or an ROI or a case plan or service plan. I don't know, some plan, whatever that plan was, you know what I mean? And so, but in this way, they can attach that plan to the actual referral. We can send it on. We got 5 minutes left. Holy crap. Okay. So let's move on. So anyway, let me just say this. Anybody who wants to see this system of an evening while we're here, we would be happy to sit with you and show you all this stuff because we're so proud of it. I mean, we really are. So, and you can see the kinds of documents that we do. Go down a little bit, Britt, to the source. Oh, okay. Okay, source sheets. So every one of our peer support specialists have a card deck with contact information. Who they can contact and yeah, thank you, Brittany. She's going to show it up right here. This is fictitious name, so don't have a stroke. Okay?
Yeah, so, this is all fake.
See, they each have their own card deck. And it just kind of shows you where they're at. And you can click on it and there's attachments you can download for supporting information so that you're really able to serve them. Okay, we probably need to go.
Where you want me to go to?
Next.
Next.
Okay, so we even have a way to terminate people. So if somebody has completed their services, whether they're denying services, and overwhelmingly our biggest problem in Kentucky, which I don't think is isolated, is from the time they get referred to the time we get our hands on it, they're gone. That information changes. They lose their phone. Anybody that thinks us folks from the culture of poverty don't have mobility, you're wrong. We may not be upwardly mobile, but we are darn sure sidewardly mobile. And so people shuffle. So, and this kind of just gives you a read of nurturing parenting and how many of them attended what kinds of services. Oh, Brittany, you are. Sorry. What kind of services that they get? How many of them are youth? How many are family? How many are adults? You can see it's primarily family. How much time are we spending with them? So that we can track that. How many of them is group and how many is individual services? So we can track that. So here, this is a demo, but this is half of what our truth is right now. Right now, it's 4,000 and some odd services that we've done. It's between 20 till 1st of October, 2022.
February 2021 to October
2022. Yeah, so that's significant. Okay, the different types, we went over all that. How many was in person? How many was, gosh, you're making me dizzy.
Sorry, I was trying to get
that chick can move, but her brain's much faster than mine. Here, what the gender is. That's another big discovery we made. Y'all hear about this deadbeat dad stuff? That's baloney. We got lots of dads out here who are interested in their kids and are getting services for them. So that's baloney, and we know that. We have the proof. And usually with the guys, they're the ones that volunteer. I mean, you're native Appalachian. What is the sexual identity? We live in Kentucky. This is what Kentucky looks like. And I know, sad, ain't it? This is what Kentucky looks like. And this is an onset. So this is how people are willing to identify themselves. Later on, we might find that may look a little different. So as you can see, like here, these are the regions, and then we have what regions are active. Because we are statewide, just because somebody lives in the Cumberland DCBS region, doesn't mean they get services from somebody who lives there. They might get services from somebody who lives in the Northeastern region. So that way we're always available. We can serve more folks. In home and out of home, look at this. This was a new discovery. What we discovered is we could actually work with these kids in home and they were willing to work, contrary to popular belief. So we've got to go because we're done, right?
Well, I'm not checking out yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I just have to do some housekeeping before anyone leaves, both online and in person. When we pull up the slides, if you could pull up the slides again, there'll be a QR code or a website. This presentation is provided by funding from SAMHSA, and they need to know how we're doing. So we have to ask you to please, please, please fill out the SAMHSA survey for SPAs. That means you can either get it and take it out you'll see it on the PowerPoint at the very end. And if you're online, when you X out of Zoom, it'll take you right to the survey. And then after anyone completes the survey, it'll take you to your certification, your certificate saying you took 3 hours of a training. So if you want that, I need you to fill out the survey. I think it would be great. Barbara, we have like 5 minutes to answer some questions. I'm sure people still have some questions.
Well, we can, yeah, let's go.
We'll pull up the survey and the PowerPoint.
So I wasn't crazy. It was not me. Okay.
No, we were talking, but
It's really struggling. Okay. Oh, okay. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So anyway, so we have more stuff. And if you want the PowerPoint, a lot of that stuff is on the PowerPoint, so you can get it. And it's got a lot of real data.
I think we can still ask questions or answer questions.
Yeah, if you want to ask questions. And let me just say, it's not like we don't like to talk about this. So if you all want to holler at us sometime, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. We think this is a gift that can be used other places too.
Anybody with questions? For us, Kelly, you got one over there.
Thank you. Have y'all, I haven't heard you talk much about your youth peer specialists, but have y'all had any challenges when it comes to them maintaining their wellness, you know, with self-care? What would you say to that?
I would say they don't have any different challenges than the adults do. That's what I would say. That has been my experience. Our youth may have some challenges, but so do our adults, so do our caretakers. So I don't think it's any more than what we see in caretakers. That's been our experience.
I wanted to know, during the COVID, did you find that your data went down a lot from engagement with your clients?
Heck no. It went up.
From virtual?
Yeah, buddy. It went up.
Was it for
when people were, when there was an expectation that people did not have to go in person for services, families and youth, this was their ticket. They really liked this, and we saw an increase. Now, it depends on who you're asking, right? Because if you're asking some of the agencies, they might say they saw a decrease, but we saw an increase.
For virtual.
For virtual. Well, period, because they were reaching out. We could get to them.
Your staff, are they old workers? Do they come to the office?
They are absolutely, they're here. Y'all stand up.
Except
let this guy
me.
see you.
I have an office.
Yeah, yeah. They work out of their car, out of their home, out of anywhere somebody will let them put down a computer. And that's part of what why we can do it with not as much money as a traditional setting, because we can meet in person, and we. What? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, buddy, we save money. Yeah, buddy, we save money. Let me just be clear. Well, we do everything on a leap and a faith. So we didn't have all that much travel money to start with. We was going to riddle it as we went. So what we discovered was there was a lot less to riddle because this was working.
Barb, my question is, for an organization that could have been very support service driven, this is around building organization and the foundation to sell your case to the greater community advocacy government. Can you speak a little bit about how many years it kind of took for you to develop this focus?
Oh my God, you're going to be too surprised
too
when I tell you.
And then were there a couple of board members or people who helped bring the organization?
Our board members had the vision of the peer support centers. They trusted their staff, which was unfortunately me, to look at how we could pull it off with their guidance and their support. And we started collecting data for real February of 2021. And this is all the stuff we've gotten. And we built this system starting from February 21 to now. And now we're using it. So in the scheme of things, it didn't take a long time to build this system. That makes sense?
Anybody else? Final questions and answers section.
Well, just let us say, you all, thank you so much for letting us share what we believe to be something important going on. And we think it's good news. We want everybody to have the benefit of what we've done. Because you could go do something and it could be even cooler. And if it is, come back and tell us about it so we can fix what we're doing. So, but thank you for allowing us to be here and talk to you.
Thank you, guys.